morning, Hoop fans. This is the NBA Daily for Monday, June 30th, and we're talking free agency. Well, not yet. It is pre-free agency. I'm Zena Keita with Baraheni and Dave DuFour in the analyst seat. And we got to break down. There's been a lot of big moves happening right before the free agency window opens today at 3 p.m. And then also a lot of names we haven't seen moving just yet. So let's get into it. Guys, free agency seems a little dry this year.
It's boring.
Is
The
it?
NBA killed free agency.
How did this happen? Why is this changing? Now that I'm in the space and I'm really paying attention, I'm like, damn, I want some blockbuster moves. And
It's
I feel
a few
like it's
things.
a little dry.
Yeah, it's a few things probably. I think one thing is, contract extensions actually work, right? These max extensions, guys take the money, they stay put. You don't have, Paul George was the biggest free agent to change teams via free agency last summer in forever.
Yep.
Like it died because the power of the extension actually works. It's allowed more of these small markets to keep guys. Teams have gotten even more creative, I think, about the way that they use extensions, as we've seen over the weekend. We've seen a lot of extensions that are, a little bit fake. I mean, I would say James Harden, it's not a 2-year contract. It's an extra year and an extra option. And it's, partially guaranteed, right? Like, so a lot of this is semantics too, where it's just, it's funny
It's
that
also,
free agency, because nobody gets to free agency anymore.
Yeah, because teams are too scared to let a guy walk into unrestricted free agency unless you're the Chicago Bulls. Basically, they're the only team that's just like, yeah, sure, go test the market, no problem. It's not a big deal. But basically, every other team is very worried about losing players for nothing. And for the most part, they are trying to either lock a player down via extension or trade them before they get to this point. So, yeah, I think the whole pre-agency conversation, it's funny because a guy who has talked about pre-agency a lot lost his job this Friday. Masai Ujiri just got let go. And the Raptors are famous for pre-agency over the last couple of years, acquiring Brandon Ingram before he became an unrestricted free agent, Emmanuel Quickley, et cetera, et cetera. A lot of teams do that now, though. Like, they like to get guys in beforehand. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Bird in hand. Yep.
Okay, well, let's get into some of the moves that have happened in pre-agency. Dave, you just mentioned James Harden, of course, being able to return to the Clippers after a very successful season, I would say, for what the Clippers look like in the playoffs and such. They want to keep building on that. Let me just make sure I got those numbers right. Declining his $36.3 million player option and intends to sign a new 2-year, $81.5 million contract. Again, as you mentioned, Dave, that second year with the player option. What are some other ones that we're seeing? Of course, looks like Bobby Portis intends to sign a 3-year, $44 million contract.
Giannis watch.
So return to the Bucks. And we know Giannis is looking at every move that the Bucks front office is making, from the youth that they're bringing in to obviously the players that they are returning. And once again, Bobby Portis with the player option in 2027.
Yeah, and they're probably going to wind up losing Brook Lopez, which, frankly, that might be time. And it also might be time for Giannis at the 5 a little bit more than we see it currently. Just think about the league, right? Like, it's not like he's going to be a big post-up guy. It would allow them to maybe get more shooters on the court around him. So it makes sense if you can get Bobby Portis to come back. There's familiarity. And if this is going to be a gap year for them, I still think that they want to compete. Obviously, you've got Giannis, right? He maybe can will you in what should be fairly down east next season. He might be able to will you to the conference finals. You get to the conference finals, maybe you make the finals. Maybe there's people available throughout the season. I've got some fake trades for the Bucks that are kind of fun. But
I actually
like
have a quick fake trade here. I don't know where I heard this, but recently I think I saw it, and it was a Bradley Beal for Dame swap. I don't know if you guys thought of
that's not bad.
Where it's like you get a player versus you don't have a player who's going to be out for the entire year with an Achilles tear.
Fair.
And they both make similar money. Wouldn't take that much to get something like that done. I can't remember where I saw that.
For Phoenix, it doesn't really work because they need a player who can play because their team is bad. I don't know if you know, but they got a bunch of centers, but
they have so many guards.
But they also have so many guards. I was just going to say, this takes one guard out of the equation, and you get a guard for the Bucks that can play really well in the pick and roll if Giannis remains. So that's actually a really interesting one. I like this. I like this hypothetical. Let's talk a few more before we get into the ones that might be showing something in the tea leaves. Kyrie Irving, Dallas Mavericks agreed to a 3-year, $119 million deal. That's great. He opted out and lowered his salary, which allows the Mavericks to have a mid-level exception to add into that mix. Cooper Flagg may have another veteran teammate joining him alongside him.
D'Angelo Russell.
Yeah. That's by the way, this Kyrie deal, it's another one of these. It's a fake extra, year at the end where if everything works out right and he comes back off that knee surgery, he'll probably be looking for that last big NBA contract. But good job, by the way. Dallas sign the injured guy to the deal. That's good business.
Yeah.
No, really. I mean it. Like,
no,
that's
honestly,
the way you do it.
I can't tell if you're being sarcastic or not.
Nope.
Actually, okay,
like
good.
Because
I was going to say, I mean, this is very similar to what the Warriors did with Klay Thompson.
Yep.
And so I was going to say, I actually like it, but I couldn't tell if you're being sarcastic. So we're on the same page there.
Also, like at this point, what are you going to do? You're not going to trade
no
Kyrie
other option.
and still you got to sign this guy. So
well, the vision is now clear. Now that the Mavericks, won the lottery and were able to draft Cooper Flagg, I think the vision is clear.
Hopefully, that was my big takeaway from last week. The genius of Nico Harrison locking into 1.8% chance of winning the draft lottery.
Okay, well, let's keep on this topic of vision, because there's a team up north that made 2 signings that makes it kind of clear that there's a particular player whose vision on this team looks a little blurry. Naz Reid and the Timberwolves signed a 5-year, $125 million a year contract. Okay. Final year again, player options all around, folks. Okay.
Right.
But this is huge. Number one, let's just give credit to Naz Reid. You signed one of the largest contracts ever signed by a player coming off the bench. This shows that Minnesota wants to keep with that core that almost got, past the Western Conference Finals. And they want to keep to that core rotation, and they just want to continue to utilize what Naz Reid provides, especially with Karl-Anthony Towns gone. The other thing they did, Julius Randle, rumored to get 3-year, $100 million contract with the Timberwolves. So now you got Naz, you got Julius Randle locked in, and there's someone that really upped their stakes, showing off their defense, showing off their capability to shoot outside, almost 40% from 3. Do you know who that is?
Yeah, man, I'm Canadian. I have to know who he is.
Let us know who's still wandering out there for the Timberwolves.
Yeah, look, I think he's actually ending up being one of the most sought after free agents tomorrow, and that's Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Like you said, and you kind of listed out his resume very well, the dude can basically play everywhere because he can knock down shots, because he can defend on the perimeter, and because he could do a little bit of ball handling for you next to your guard. And so that's just the perfect, you look at like the Oklahoma City Thunder, you look at a lot of these other contending teams, they have that type of player on the roster. And so he makes a lot of sense for a lot of teams that are trying to take that next step. We'll see who gets.
Let me ask you guys a question.
Yeah.
Do they have the other types of players that Minnesota just signed?
Fair.
Right? Do they have a defensive big liability, right? Like, do they have a guy who can't play up so that you can play smaller? Like, this is actually, I don't want to hate on it completely, because it wasn't like this wasn't a successful team, but I think they learned the wrong lessons from last season. And
interesting.
Look, Julius Randle what's his new deal? Is it $31 million a year?
So basically like 32, 33 million.
33, 3 year, $100
totally
million.
Fine money. But the issue is you are going to remember how much he makes in both positive and negative ways every single night. And like, that's the type of player it's tough to I mean, they are essentially locked in now to this roster. And this is a year removed from trading away Karl-Anthony Towns to give themselves more flexibility under the new CBA. And I mean, look, I love Naz Reid as a player. I think he's obviously like this great energy, scoring big that comes off the bench. This contract is the type of contract that in 2 years, this is where we point and we say, wow, if they hadn't signed Naz Reid to this deal, maybe they have some flexibility to go out and get some pieces. We've done this over and over again with teams that were close to contention. I mean, to a certain degree, a little bit what Milwaukee did previously with Bobby Portis, when they doubled down and kind of overpaid to keep that going, right? I would just say we have looked at the Naz Reid type of contract a few times now, and we always kind of wind up in the same place. That being said, you're competing against Detroit, who probably knew that Malik Beasley was going to be dealing with the situation that he's dealing with the allegations against him. So they were going to have some money. So maybe they caught wind of that and they just felt the need, hey, we need to get this done. But I am surprised, especially after last season. And you know, we talked about this team a lot and how hard it was to fit these guys in together. Yeah. I'm surprised that they went back with both of them. I thought they would make a choice between the two, right?
I thought that we might see that too. But at the same time, I've brought this up with the Knicks, so I have to bring it up with the Wolves. They got this guy 3 days before training camp. And so there is this like workout period. I saw John Krasinski tweet about the same thing where it's like they're hoping the second year can get them acclimated a little bit more.
Right.
And the fact that they already made the Western Conference Finals, despite not necessarily having everything all figured out, and really getting into a stride towards the second half of the season, especially their defense, I feel like there's something there for them to double down on. That being said, you bring up something interesting contractually, because to me, I look at it and I'm like, okay, that's fair value for Naz Reid. That's fair value for Julius Randle in terms of like the dollar amount. But at the same time, I thought the same thing when the Bucks extended Brook Lopez. I thought the same thing when the Bucks extended Chris Middleton. That being said, they are older than Naz Reid and Julius Randle currently. But it's also it's similar in the sense like, are you painting yourself into a corner here where you're not going to be able to get out eventually, right?
So let me do a quick cleanup first on Dave's mention of Malik Beasley, just to clear up for those that are curious about it. Malik Beasley currently under federal investigation by the U.S. District Attorney's Office for alleged gambling on NBA games, including player prop bets. He has not been charged, and his attorney, Steve Haney, has stated that the investigation does not equate to a charge. So that is what Dave was referring to there. Oh, go ahead.
I hope not. I hope not. For Malik
right,
Beasley.
exactly.
Yeah, I hope not.
Like, of course.
Yeah, he was a day away from a contract.
Right. And that's one of the biggest names, right? And one of the free agents that we haven't heard, where he's going to land. Of course, this investigation is probably going to affect where that ends up. But one thing I will say, just to go back on that comment about the contracts of like, Julius Randle and Naz Reid, I think it is true. This is something that we all do as fans. When someone's playing incredibly well or incredibly bad, you're like, oh, that person we got for a deal, or that person is like, oh my God, you're taking our entire cap space. What's happening? But there is something to be said too about how much is Milwaukee also kind of paying back, not Milwaukee, Minnesota. Kind of paying back Naz Reid for the work that he did under that really undersized contract. Right. Like I'm not sure that that's exactly what they're doing, but it's like, thank you so much for being such a cheap steal for so many years that we're now going to kind of pay you back. And I wonder how much his agent, utilized that to justify the numbers that he's gotten now. And then the other thing too, is like looking at Julius Randle as a person that covered the Warriors. Julius was a problem.
He was awesome. Yeah.
Hey, he made Draymond look like a child.
21 points, 6 rebounds, the assists. I mean, he was a problem in these playoffs. So
it's no shame to say that y'all lost to the best defense in the world, right? It's no shame.
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And I think for me, the biggest thing that I'm curious about, all the way back to Dave's original point of, what did you sign, or do you still have the things that you need?
Right.
Nick Nickeil Alexander-Walker. I'm like all over the place right now. Nickeil Alexander-Walker, 40% shooting.
Yeah.
And when you look at some of the games that Minnesota had during the playoffs, shooting was a problem.
Think about the parts of the season where DiVincenzo struggled. Nickeil Alexander-Walker was pretty steady for them. He is the guy that they throw on the best player on the other team, the best guard.
Right.
Nickeil, go guard him. I mean, to me, he was a natural to slide it maybe into the Mike Conley role. I know a lot of people just worry you need more ball handling. I think he's probably enough because of how good Anthony Edwards and Randle are. That to me is a huge loss. I mean, again, the stuff that we just took away from this playoffs. All right, depth. So you lose depth just because that's a piece that's been with you for a while. So that corporate knowledge is out the door, not to mention the talent of the player, but also extra ball handling, on-ball defense. Like, these are things that we're talking. It's not stretch bigs that we're constantly talking about in the playoffs. It is Nickeil Alexander-Walker's. You know, I mean, Andrew Nembhard and Nickeil Alexander-Walker. I mean, there's a lot of comp there.
And man, you need those types next to your high usage guard. And like, if Ant is going to take that type of load offensively that he did last season, he needs a guy who's going to be able to help him out on the defensive end. Even though Ant can raise himself on defense as well, you need that guy who's just going to be sort of like the Swiss Army knife for you. So I agree. Losing him is also like, are you going to find a solution? Is there someone out there that you can get? The money doesn't work for you to go out and get somebody. It's tough.
Maybe they think it's on the roster, right? Maybe it's Rob Dillingham year 2. Maybe it's Terrence Shannon Jr. who played for them in the playoffs. Right. Yeah. And I mean, that's it. He's got a big NBA body, and I mean, he's not scared to drive. So maybe it's that. I mean, again, they've done a good job up there of identifying the talent that they have. So and they obviously have maximized it. I mean, they've had a pretty good run the last couple seasons, but Nickeil, that's a tough one to lose. Speaking of, I think right now, what is it? Atlanta and Detroit.
That's what I was just going to button you out with.
Are the favorites?
Pistons and Hawks are the front runners right now. And Nickeil Alexander-Walker could sign a contract starting at or above the mid-level exception, about $14 million. All right, let's take a quick break. We'll come back. We got some more folks to talk about. Shout out to all of our friends that are on our stream right now. We literally put out a quick little note to say, hey, we're recording about pre-agency, etc. on Blue Sky X, and folks were in the line waiting to hear our thoughts. So we're excited about that. But as of right now, we're recording this on Sunday night ahead of free agency and looking in the tea leaves, trying to figure out what's going on. So similar to a Nickeil Alexander-Walker, after signing Nas, after signing Julius, it looks like, hey, maybe it looks like Nickeil might be out the door. Well, there's someone else that might be out the door as well, but in Cleveland. Sam Merrill just signed his extension, or new contract, excuse me, I should say. 4 years, 100, or excuse me, let me make sure.
I think it was 4 years.
38 million.
Yeah,
I was going to say 138 million.
That's a lot for Sam
Merrill. He's shooting, but not that much. Sam Merrill gets 4 years, 38 million. And then, of course, we know about the trade that brings Lonzo Ball to the Cavs. So that makes the alarm bells go off for someone like Ty Jerome. And Dave, when I look at the way that Ty Jerome has like boosted his stock, I mean, literally last year, I even did not know this, but I looked up his stats today, 51% from the floor, 44% from three, 87% from free throw, 50, 40, 90, almost like that's a crazy jump from what he was doing at the Golden State Warriors. Right now, Charlotte, Memphis is in the running for a Ty Jerome. What are your thoughts around what he can end up doing? This is a guy that was voted third in the sixth man of the year conversation. He could end up being in significant roles in either one of those programs.
I mean, personally, I think Cleveland's dodging a little bit of a bullet here, just because we've seen this happen time and time again. I don't think Ty Jerome has the track record that I want to give him the deal that he's probably about to get if I'm Cleveland, because Cleveland is looking to win now, but that's a sort of contract that can just derail your plans. We saw him in the playoffs, and look, it's one playoff run. You don't know.
All I remember is the floaters being missed. It was terrible.
He played real tight. He did not. It was not 50, 40, 90 in the playoffs. That doesn't mean that he couldn't maybe be that guy. I think he's going to wind up having more value for Memphis. I mean, and Charlotte, what they're trying to do here, it's pretty clear to me. Like the Colin Sexton deal, like even with the draft picks, like they're trying to change the entire character of their team. And Ty Jerome makes a lot of sense, right? Get another ball handler out there because you need another like caretaker, right? Low turnover guy that maybe you can play next to LaMelo. And maybe it opens up something for LaMelo. I don't know. But I think for the Cavs, this is okay. I think that this is a role that you could fill. It's funny because when I thought that they were going to lose Ty Jerome, Colin Sexton was one of the names I had on my list of, I wonder if the Cavs could get him back because he
let's dive into that.
Role, right?
Let's dive into that, because I think that is the one, if anything, that kind of blew our minds in this pre-agency move. We're talking about Colin Sexton being traded away from Utah Jazz to Charlotte, and in exchange for Jusuf Nurkic and a future second-round pick.
Yep.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Did you have this on your board?
God, no, absolutely not. It was so bizarre because both of these guys are expiring contracts. They both make around the same amount of money. And we have talked about this before on this podcast, but Jusuf Nurkic was one of the most detrimental big men in the league last year, to the point where the Suns had to trade him, to the point where even in Charlotte, when he started playing for them, Moussa Diabate was a guy who was getting more minutes than Jusuf Nurkic. So it was like, it was tough to see Nurk be like that. So I don't see Utah's vision in this. I completely understand Charlotte's vision. You get a backup.
Yep.
You get a guy who can be like honestly, like one of the biggest and like hardest working guards. If you see him on the floor, he's constantly busting tail, which is something I love.
He's not a bad defender because he doesn't try hard.
He tries.
Right? There's a physical limitation for him.
Yeah. Oh my God. Absolutely. So like that, you think of their draft too, with Con Knipple and obviously having LaMelo, they just have a lot of offensive juice now. Charlotte seems like it's a well-run organization.
Well, they have no centers. Okay, they've traded all their centers to Phoenix.
That's true. They don't have any
right, and then they
no
traded
Mark
away
Williams, no Jusuf Nurkic.
They traded away the center that they got from Phoenix. They got him out of there. So
they got Moussa. They got Moussa.
No centers, no one touching Phoenix. I mean, I think that's a smart move. It's shocking to me that a player as productive as Colin Sexton required a second-round pick to move for a worse player. And it just goes to show, I mean, there's a few things at play here, right? Number one, what if this is a real tide shift in the trade market and the player market, where it's just like, you can't be a guard who is a defensive liability and expect us to pay any sort of premium for you. It could be a thing, right? It could just also be that a lot of folks are trying to keep their powder dry. And
it could also be just like Utah has too many guards,
too many guards.
They had to offload one of them.
They have to do it. They have to open up space for these young guys too that they have coming in, and even the ones that aren't there yet.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's talk about another team that doesn't have any stars, but hey, they've got a potential GOAT, and that's the Lakers. LeBron James opted into his $52.6 million option with the Lakers for next season. This is after so much talk about him wanting to be on a contending team, him wanting to be a part of, something that was building, according to some of the rumors that were said by Rich Paul, reported by Shams Charania. We heard that Savannah, his wife, wants him to, stop playing soon. I mean, we heard a lot.
We heard that from LeBron. What kind of restaurant was this, by the way? So, by the way, for context, someone was eavesdropping on LeBron James having a conversation at dinner.
Yes.
And recorded it, because that's the world we live in. Wow. I've heard the recording because that's also the world we live in. It's news. It's part of our job, guys. And he says, and it's kind of joking, right? Savannah wants me to retire in the next year. Okay. Yeah, you ought to retire. You've got, people.
What a world we live in.
It's amazing, right? Like,
that's
just
crazy.
Invasion of privacy. But yeah, he said it. But also, is this breaking news to anyone?
No.
He's
41 soon.
Right.
Yeah. His wife literally is playing with his son.
Yeah. So I'm sure that she is ready to have him around the house. I don't, for now, right? Give her a couple of years of that, and then she's probably like, please go LeBron, get a hobby.
Can you please go to NBC,
Yeah. But opting into the full amount. This is the first time LeBron's opted into the final year of a contract ever. This is a real shift career-wise, right? And my favorite thing, Zena, and this is like a tradition with LeBron, every summer, you got to put out whatever kind of passive aggressive message.
Oh yeah.
And he doesn't want to be a part of a rebuild.
Absolutely not.
No way. Who does? At 40? I get it. Yeah, I get it.
Right. I think it makes sense. But now it's the number one conversation in the zeitgeist is Rob Pelinka building something that is winnable. Like, you got LeBron James back. Awesome. Luka Doncic seems to be in the gym. Okay, we're seeing the content flow onto social media of him putting in the work.
Skinny.
Austin Reeves, though, it declined his extension. He's gonna test the market a little bit.
Yeah, he'll get his max next summer.
He'll get his max next year.
He'll get
be about $10 to $12 million more. Great, but you've got all these pieces, particularly on the outside. But you don't have Anthony Davis on the inside. You don't have anyone really on the inside. Jackson Hayes is still a free agent. That name is floating around, and so everyone else has talked about it. I want to ask you guys, like, where do the Lakers stand right now, especially now with LeBron James opting?
Are we going to do the thing?
Money.
So we'll hold on. We'll do it in two parts, Dave. Okay,
all right.
First of all, obviously, more recently, everybody has saw the DeAndre Ayton news, which is bizarre in its own way.
It's right up there with the Colin Sexton thing as far as 100%. Trade value, right?
DeAndre Ayton, let's just be clear, has bought out his contract in Portland, basically allowing himself to go test out the market and find a better fit. Interesting because of how much money he still had left on his contract.
$35.5 million is
there's the number. That's right.
That's why it's
and we don't
so
know
bizarre.
what the buyout number was yet, by the way. So we don't know what the agreement is. That being said, I will say, shout out to Portland. They got him out before free agency. He gets to go out and look for another job.
True.
Right.
Yeah.
And again, we still don't know what the number is. But I mean, again, what is going on with the trade value around the league? And I'm not saying DeAndre Ayton should have teams clamoring, but I mean, this guy.
But you couldn't do anything. You
number
couldn't get
one overall
anything.
pick.
Yeah, that's bizarre to me.
You couldn't. Someone would take the talent flyer.
A Colin Sexton and I don't know. Walker Kessler is probably too much. But
now we're rearranging deck chairs because
it's
just trading off the flotsam that neither team wants.
That nobody wants.
This Ayton move was shocking, and now he's free to sign anywhere. I mean, he's theoretically one of the better free agents that are available tomorrow.
Yeah,
theoretically,
it's like Miles Turner. It's him. I mean, that's the Nickeil Alexander-Walker, obviously. Okay, so look, that's part one.
What's more surprising, the Sexton move or DeAndre Ayton?
I would probably say, really? I would say Ayton just because.
For me, Sexton is a better player.
Mm.
And as a guy who has a positive impact on your locker room.
That's true. You know what's surprising to me about the Ayton deal, though? The fact that an expiring $35 million player couldn't go anywhere.
That's shocking.
To the point where they just couldn't house him somewhere else, And this is a guy who still averaged like 14 and 10 last year and was obviously was not the number one overall pick.
He was not dominating.
Player. He was not dominating,
Guys, by the way, this is a nickname that DeAndre Ayton himself came up with, by the way. Dominating is...
Anyways, I'm just saying
that is fetch happen, folks. We're not trying to make fetch happen. Let's keep going.
That is part one to this. Maybe the Lakers just say, well, hey, DeAndre Ayton, would you like to be the starting center for the Los Angeles Lakers and play with Luka Doncic? Okay, that's part one. The other part, the more fun, the more interesting part is for them to potentially trade LeBron James for a starting
who has a no trade
clause,
by the way.
Who has a no trade clause, who makes $56 million, so it makes it that much harder to trade him. And because he has a no trade clause, there's not that many teams that he would be willing to go to. But Dave, there is one team he's willing to go to.
I've been saying it for months, guys. What if LeBron James is the playmaker that the Cavs need to get over the hump? And of all the years to do it,
I love it.
Next
the
year
East is wide open.
The East not as wide open as it's ever been. You add LeBron James to the number one seed. No,
trade
it's a
Bronny with
deal.
him.
They both go.
Trade Bronny with him.
Yeah, send him home.
Yeah,
we're coming home. We'll do the whole thing all over again. We're doing a bunch of stuff from
coming
2008
home.
all over again.
We're coming home.
We'll do all kinds of stuff. Let's send our boys home to Cleveland. And I actually think that this works for Cleveland on the court. It gets them into the finals, in my opinion.
It's a great story. That's for
look. The trade would be there's a lot of moving parts in the trade because the Cavs are above the second apron, And so they would have to gut a couple of players. Jared Allen would have to go to the Los Angeles Lakers. DeAndre Hunter would have to go to the Los Angeles Lakers. They would have to reroute Max Strus or Dean Wade and a couple of
bunch
other
of teams
guys.
would be in on either one of those guys, by the way, because as we've talked about so many times, depth, and Max Strus and Dean Wade, by the way, guard and shoot.
Yeah.
Put them anywhere.
Yeah. And by the way, the Lakers would probably, like, I think Jared Allen is a perfect big to put alongside Luka Doncic. Just the perfect lob threat, vertical spacer, all that type of stuff. I don't know. It makes too much sense, and that's why it probably won't happen.
Okay. Man, I'm seeing it. I'm already seeing the billboards that are going up in the buildings across Cleveland.
It's Bronny and Braun together.
Right. You know what I mean? I can see it. I can visually see it. The marketing, the CMO of the Cleveland Cavaliers would have a ball with that. We got to close this out.
The Lakers need to do the league a favor, right? They were done a favor, as we all know.
Okay. I was like, well, they kind of just did the league a favor.
Send LeBron to Cleveland.
Oh, man.
They just created a maelstrom by getting Luka secretly, apparently, under the table, it feels. I feel like the Lakers are like, we did you a favor already. We don't need to do more. Interesting.
Well, we see the vision for the Mavericks.
We see the vision.
Of course.
We see the vision.
Yes.
Let's button this out because it is pre-agency we're talking about, but free agency is coming up. 12 p.m. Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern, June 30th. What is a name? Who is a person that you haven't heard enough about yet? And particularly, you're like, where in the heck is this deal? This should have been done weeks, months, forever ago. Dave, I'll start with you.
I'll jump here. I think that the best free agent available is Miles Turner. And, the Pacers are just coming off this title run. I expect him to stay. I think this will get done. I mean, I haven't heard anything otherwise. Although
would surprise me. Yeah.
I mean, there's just not a lot of teams I think that can afford him, number one, but not a lot of fits out there. I think he's kind of perfect for what they're doing. Obviously, I mean, they did just make the finals and push the Thunder to 7 games. But I kind of would have thought we would have heard that it was done by now. And maybe this is a flexibility play. Obviously, they've got some shuffling to do themselves with the Halliburton injury. But I think Miles Turner is it's an interesting name that is still sitting out there.
Yeah, I mean,
somebody in the chat said the best free agent available is Masai Ujiri. I don't know if you got an opinion on that.
Look, I mean, maybe that's the case. Apparently, there were conversations about him maybe going to Atlanta. I know that they have found their own kind of structure there.
Denver doesn't have a GM.
Denver
he could go back, right?
Yeah, he could go back. Maybe there's a conversation there. Yeah, I could say
they don't have that Toronto money though.
I would wager that Masai probably waits until one of those expansion teams pops up and then jumps on the wagon there, because Seattle was also going to be run by Tim Lewicki. Tim Lewicki and Masai have a connection. That's sort of my hunch here. He probably waits, sees what happens there. Okay, I was going to say Kevon Looney is my big free agent just because we're Loon Dog people here.
Yeah,
that would be awesome. I'm very excited to see where he goes. I can't really put maybe I would say Dorian Finney-Smith is the other guy, and we haven't talked about Houston yet. Jabari Smith Jr. got his extension, which was similar to Naz Reid's. I believe it was 5 years, $125 million. So he gets about $25 million a year. $122 million, actually, right? Yeah.
Which can only happen after Fred VanVleet's agreed to a 2-year extension, $50 million, significantly lower
100%,
than you expected him to do. So, that definitely helps.
So, Rockets guys are kind of buying in.
Yeah, it seems like they want to figure out how do we run this back but better. And the guys are realizing, who's the talent to kind of put the spotlight on, including a Jabari Smith Jr. for sure.
Yeah, so I mean, I think like Dorian Finney-Smith, we were kind of talking about this before the pod started, but like the rotation for the Rockets would just be absolutely insane if Dorian Finney-Smith signs there for the mid-level exception. You think of like their starting 5, plus they have Tari Eason off of the bench, plus if they would, they'd have Dorian off of the bench. You might include a Reed Shepherd in there, Aaron Holiday. Like they have guys, they have so much depth, and we've talked about depth ad nauseum when it comes to this playoff run and what it means. Houston has that right now, and they have the top end talent, right?
And didn't really make a full consolidation trade, right? Like they kept all the guys that they wanted to keep. Even Cam Whitmore, who I don't think they necessarily want to keep, they didn't include, in the KD trade. So Yeah, Houston is a team that we're getting to them late, but they've been nailing everything the last week.
And can I just say, like, people were kind of surprised online about the Jabari Smith Jr. extension just because he was the first of his draft class to get extended. I think that's a great deal, both for him and for Houston. It's basically Naz Reid money, and it's a bet to say, hey, we expect you to be about as good as Naz Reid. If you're better than that, cool. You've made your money, and we've
got the option
5-year contract, and you got the option.
But
and if you're just
it reminds me of the Jalen Green
you know?
deal, right?
Yeah,
it's same blueprint as the Jalen Green deal. Let's see what happens this year. Next year, you're still young. Some team might be interested in you, even if you're not going to work here for us. Still a good piece, and that contract's great. I mean, it's low end starter money, and Jabari Smith Jr. I think he's maybe not your third best player
next year,
but
right?
That's right. He could be your fourth. If he's your fourth starter, that's a good place to be.
Well, in case Houston needs a shooter, which I think we all can agree they do, Duncan Robinson declined his $20 million early termination option and became a free agent. So you never know what could happen.
Okay.
You never know. I think for me, it might be a little obvious. Jonathan Kuminga did not get a deal done. Ends up being extended an offer and now is officially a restricted free agent. 7.9 million was the extension that was put out there. And I just feel like it's the all of the cards are in the Warriors' hands right now. It feels like it's going to be up to the market to see what Jonathan Kuminga, can garner. And I think right now the Nets are of interest. The Heat have been interested as well. But even the Heat have apparently said that their interest has been overstated. And so very curious.
Feels like Miami's interest in everything is overstated, ends up
yeah, that's true. That's actually a really good point. Miami's
if we're looking at their roster, I'm not sure how interested in good players that they are sometimes, right?
Yeah.
Kuminga is going to be an interesting case. Like, what's his market?
Correct.
What if he winds up a guy who's sitting around in restricted free agency for a little while?
And that's a little scary.
It would be
odd. You don't want that. Like, it kind of gives you a stink, right?
Yeah.
It kind of gives you a little bit of like, what's wrong with that guy? Why is everyone? It's kind of like when you're going to go get this one product and it's the one left all the way back in the shelf.
Yeah,
and you're
why is that one?
Why is that one just sitting there? And the thing is, Jonathan Kuminga doesn't deserve that sort of label. He is capable of being a significant star on a team, not just some role player. And that's what he's looking for. He wants to be someone that comes in
Zena,
I
have a question.
Oh yeah.
Do you think that he stays with the Warriors? Like, if you had to pick right now at 12:52 a.m. Eastern, is Jonathan Kuminga staying or going from the Warriors?
I mean, it's up to the Warriors, right?
Okay.
You know what I mean? At this point, it's up to the Warriors if whatever offer is extended to Jonathan Kuminga, they have the right to match it or let him go or do a sign and trade situation. Like, I think that if Jonathan Kuminga ends up back with the Warriors, it is now. We can no longer ever say anything about Jonathan Kuminga's game, whether he plays well, plays poorly. It is on the Warriors now. You made the decision to match, keep him on your roster, incorporate him, integrate him, give him a role, figure it out with Jonathan Kuminga and Jimmy Butler. This is on you now. Because this man has just been kind of waiting around, trying to figure out where he fits. And they need to put him in a position. So at this point, you want to hold the cards? Awesome, Warriors. Like, I love that for you. That's awesome. But this man needs a role next year if you end up matching.
But that's why I think he winds up on a different team. I think it's sign and trade all day.
Chicago.
I think Chicago makes a lot of sense. Kobe White would be awesome on the Warriors. The Duncan Robinson stuff with Miami makes no sense to me. The Warriors hard capping themselves for Duncan Robinson is just unrealistic.
No.
Again,
it's also not what they need. No, I don't think
it's not going to happen. So but I'm with you. I think Kuminga, I actually expect him to be on a different team. I think it's out.
I'll be deeply sad. We just mentioned one of our comments was about Basketball Africa League. Obviously, Jonathan Kuminga did not play in Basketball Africa League, but he is one of those big awesome stories out of the continent coming up from G League Ignite.
Absolutely.
And I want him to win in this league. I am biased towards him. I will say that because he works so hard and he has an amazing, amazing story. So I just hope they all figure it out. All right. Well, as mentioned, it is almost 1 a.m. on the East Coast, and we can't go for 4 hours. I know our producers are already going to be annoyed with the fact that this is going on almost 40 minutes. Okay, we were supposed to wrap this up a long time ago, but hey, we could talk about this forever. But good news, we're going to be talking about it tomorrow, so make sure you tune in. Free agency will be going live, I believe, to talk through it throughout the day.
Yeah,
make sure you guys are up to date. Yeah? All right. Well, on behalf of Dave DuFour, Baraheni, I'm Zena Keita telling you, first and foremost, go like and subscribe this video. Go like and subscribe to the podcast. And then get ready to come back and talk to us about free agency. Enjoy the rest of your day.